Welcome. Yes, woman. You wanna start us off in just a minute here?
Yeah, I think we're gonna wait a couple minutes, give folks a chance to tune in and log on, and then we'll get going. Can't think of a better way to end the day though with our nonprofit community, right?
No, it's amazing. I mean, this is the people doing the front lines work on the ground. We're so excited about this, and you look good. You're staying well, healthy. Everything's good out in your neck of Santa Clarita?
Yeah, everything's good in Santa Clarita. We're following the orders here in the district office. Teams taking good care of each other and social distancing while at work, which is interesting. Yeah. And where are you, Senator Stern? Are you in the virtual Santa Monica Mountains?
Yeah, I'm virtually in the mountains, and I'm actually not far. I'm in Calabasas. The frustrating thing is we've been being good and not getting too deep into nature and staying in our hometown. So I'm just at my little apartment, and we're doing the telecommute thing. It's working pretty good. I think there's still a way to be effective somehow, but not the same. It's a hard dance though at the office, I can imagine.
Yeah, it sure is. Yeah. Very good. Well, we thank our nonprofit professionals joining us this evening too to offer their expert advice. Ladies, hello.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Yeah, we're going to do introductions real quick in just a few minutes, but thank you all for joining in. I assume you've been Zooming a lot and Facebook Living, or is this your first Facebook Live experience?
You know, I just heard this great new term, Zombie. Have you heard that? It's becoming a zombie, too much Zooming.
I agree. Every day I start off and I'm like, here I go. It's time to log into life.
Exactly.
All right. Well, we'll give it a few more minutes. Wait for our audience participation to pick up.
Yeah, and everyone who's signing on, do be aware as we go along here. You can follow along, and if you're commenting in Facebook Live, our staff's going to do our best to keep track of questions, and we'll try to be real time with this too. We know a bunch of you have sent questions in advance, but those of you logging on now, do get your questions ready. I think we have some telecallers too, so we'll explain how you guys can weigh in as well, not just for Facebook here. We try to be platform neutral.
Ready. What time did we say?
We're at 5:01.
Yeah, we're at 5:01.
Why don't we give the internet 30 seconds to catch up, and then
okay.
Maybe not a half hour.
Yeah. A Henry Stern half hour is about 30 seconds. So that's
my half hour.
That's your half.
I've lost track. Like, I think it's Monday. My staff said it's Monday.
As far as we know.
It's really sad when that's what's trending on Twitter, is that like, it's Monday. That's how you know.
That's how you know.
You're in lockdown. Well, I'll just start just by welcoming everyone. My name is Henry Stern. I'm a state senator in San Fernando Valley and Santa Clarita Valley a little bit, and Simi Valley and the Conejo Valley, and all through sort of Malibu, Topanga, Agoura, Calabasas area. And I'm so grateful to be with the Assemblywoman, who is my partner in the north part of LA and has just been an incredible leader through this crisis. I can't tell you how much comfort it brings me to know that you and your whole team are hustling constantly. So thank you for sort of helping jumpstart this whole event today, Assemblywoman.
Well, thank you, Senator Stern. It's my pleasure. And likewise, it's amazing to have a colleague who is always working, always thinking about what's next, and everything from what we need to do for our communities now to your really hard push on keeping climate in the forefront too, as we get through this crisis, knowing how interdependent our health is on our climate and our environment. So I appreciate you for that. I appreciate our guests for joining in. And, you know, why nonprofits? Why the emphasis on this sector of our economy? Well, two really, really important reasons why this is important to the Senator and myself. First of all, Cal nonprofits across California are one of the state's biggest employers. And a lot of people don't realize that. People think of nonprofits as these organizations where you might go and spend a couple of hours a week or put in your volunteer time, or that's where you write your annual giving checks. But in California, they are a significant part of our workforce and essential to our economy. And then secondarily, it's our California nonprofits right now that are filling in really critical gaps in the delivery of services to all of our Californians who need it, from food delivery to medical assistance, health care, domestic violence support, mental health services, housing. There are so many important aspects of day-to-day life for Californians that are being impacted right now. And nonprofits across California are filling in with all of that. And so we want to make sure that they're getting the help and support and really important resources that they need. So I'd like to thank and welcome our panel of experts who's here with us today to lead off this conversation. With us from Cal Nonprofits, we have Jan Masaoka, who is the CEO. She is a Cal Nonprofits is a statewide policy alliance of more than 10,000 nonprofits speaking to government, philanthropy, and the public at large. And along with active policy and research work, Cal Nonprofits' current initiatives include flexibility and funding for nonprofits in the COVID-19 crisis, co-sponsoring a bill on donor-advised fund transparency, and outreach addressing census and voter mobilization. Another really important piece of this conversation is whether or not all Californians are going to be counted in our census, because being counted is fundamental to the resources that this state is going to be able to rely on going forward to continue to support all of these efforts. So do your census if you haven't done it yet. So welcome to Jan. Also welcome and thank you to Lucy Salcido-Carter, Public Policy Director at Cal Nonprofits. Lucy Salcido-Carter is the Public Policy Director. She directs policy initiatives that protect and promote California's nonprofits. And welcome to her. And finally, Vanessa Bechtel, President and CEO of the Ventura County Community Foundation. And the Ventura County Community Foundation is an organization committed to safeguarding the long-term legacies of thousands of generous donors through the careful management of the charitable capital entrusted to them. So, we've talked a little bit about the importance of the nonprofit sector. We know right here across the communities that we represent, Henry Stern and I, between the two of us, could probably easily name dozens, just right off the top of our head, and the very important work that they do. So again, the focus of this conversation is going to be, how can we provide help and support to them, not only as our community's employers, but also in the very important work that they are doing, supporting the community. So I want to direct our first ask to Jan about the current statewide situation for nonprofits and what advocacy is happening at the state level on behalf of the nonprofit community.
Well, thanks so much, Christine. I actually wanted to start by saying thank you to you and to Senator Stern that, making yourselves available to nonprofits, because that way they get to hear directly from the source what's going on from policymakers, but also that you can hear directly from them about what kinds of things that they need to do. So thanks again for taking the time to do this, to do that. So, you mentioned earlier, but never has it been clearer that nonprofits are the heartbeat of our communities. Everywhere you look, there's nonprofits, as you said, in healthcare and housing and behavioral health and emergency services, kind of everywhere. And sometimes I think we almost lose track of the fact that there's so many different types of nonprofits that include not just the health clinics, for example, but nonprofit theaters and environmental organizations as well. It's often said that nonprofits rely on government funding, and that's true. It represents about 30% of nonprofit sector income. But what's not said as often is that government relies on nonprofits. So in fact, 32%, for example, of Medi-Cal services are delivered by nonprofits. So I think we've all become so much more aware of the agriculture and the food supply chain that all of us are involved with. And we know that the government has an important role in protecting that supply chain. And California's nonprofits, we're really the supply chain for services. And the government has the same kind of responsibility and interest in protecting that particular supply chain. I know that a lot of people are here from LA, but we actually have more people from Ventura County. I just wanted to say a couple of things about Ventura County. There are 2,010 nonprofits in Ventura County, but only 466 of them have paid staff. So it's mostly an all volunteer sector. And as you mentioned, though, 1 in every 14 California jobs is at a nonprofit. We actually employ more people than construction. So when it comes to the issues of protecting employers and making sure that we maintain a healthy California workforce, nonprofits really need to be at the table for that too. And we're going to be sending everybody here later on a little profile about Ventura County and Los Angeles County's nonprofits. And then just one thing I wanted to say about our advocacy work. So in a survey we just did, 86% of nonprofits said that inflexibility with government contracts is damaging their ability to deliver services. And that's because, for example, you have a senior center that serves meals to seniors in kind of a church basement or something like that. Now they're closed. They're trying to deliver meals, but they can't deliver as many as they used to be able to have. Or you also have even health clinics. They have 1 million people now coming in with virus-related, but they're not meeting their quotas on, for example, TB testing, because not as many people are coming in for that. So we know that nonprofits need the ability to have some flexibility with these contracts and to be able to move money from one item to another, because now I just talked to one nonprofit health clinic, and the cost of masks for them has gone up from 40 cents to over $1. So if they have extra money because they have, say, a vacant position, they need to be able to move it there. And I am so happy that so many county departments and many state departments are kind of helping and working with nonprofits to solve these problems. But we really also need kind of a statewide mandate for that kind of flexibility. So that's been the main focus of what we're doing, along with one other very important point is that any supports for for-profits need also to be made for nonprofits, because we are employers, we are property owners, we are property tenants. So all those things need to be given to those economic pieces need to be for nonprofits as well. So thanks very much for asking.
No, thanks for that opening, Jan. And I think, we've heard some frustration amongst our local nonprofits as well, not just with inflexibility maybe of their contracts, but also just with accessing some of the loan programs out there. So as folks may know, the Congress just expanded the Payment Protection Program funding by $320 billion. However, the terms of that program funding in some cases don't seem to fit the needs our nonprofits are having. We've also been hearing about sort of the loan structure and inconsistencies, depending on if you have an existing loan with the bank, and even the Employment Development Department, the work share program, which in theory should apply to nonprofits as well. We've heard some issues there. I was wondering, Lucy, can you just share with us whether it's on the PPP or this work share front, how have things been going for nonprofits out there who have been trying to access these so-called stimulus programs?
Well, you're right. It has been a struggle for nonprofits. It's been a struggle for them to find lending banks that will process their PPP application. And it's been a struggle to complete the application. The application forms are really geared towards for-profit businesses. So we've heard anecdotally of some nonprofits getting their PPP applications approved in round one, but frankly, we haven't heard about that many. A lot of nonprofits are still waiting to hear back, and a lot have not yet applied. So there is a new pot of money, as you mentioned. There's $310 billion in the new pot of PPP funds, and that the application process for those funds start today. So we really recommend for you all to apply if you believe that you've got conditions in which you need the loans. Get your application in as soon as possible. And if you are having trouble finding a lender, the SBA, the Small Business Administration, has a list of lenders that you can go to and look for lenders in your area. If you have a relationship with a lending institution already, it's always best to try to work with that lending institution first. Part of the new federal stimulus package and the interim funding brings more funding opportunities or lending opportunities to smaller banks and to some credit unions. So there will be an expanded opportunity now for people to access lending institutions and get those loans. The one other thing I wanted to mention, there's also the economic injury disaster loan and nonprofits that have more than 500 employees should really consider this loan option. It's not a forgiveness program the way the PPP is, but it does have a reduced interest rate for nonprofits. So that's a consideration for the larger nonprofits who can't apply for the PPP.
And we may get into this later on, but in terms of additional resources for folks to utilize if they find the SBA process daunting, I know we've got some amazing economic development collaborative in Ventura County, and you all may have some resources as well. So if folks have questions about all that, we'll be posting some of those resources for you all to rely on, and I'm sure we'll get to it as the town hall moves on. Unless you wanted to follow up on that briefly now, Lucy?
Yes, I'll say a few more things. I would really encourage you all to reach out to your local SBA representatives. Now, granted, they're going to be responding to a lot of people, but we've worked with them directly and they really do try to be responsive and answer your questions. We also have some resources on our website. So I would encourage you all to go to the calnonprofits.org website and look for some resources there.
Excellent. And I know the Assemblywoman and her team and mine will also be happy to help make some of those introductions. And we've been trying to casework some of this as we go on, because sometimes you just got to keep rattling the cage of the bureaucracy and make it move. And hopefully now that that money's going, things are going to go faster. Administrative capacity, as we understand it, at least, has been ramped up significantly. So the huge headaches we had, 2 weeks ago, we think at least are going to be smaller, although the time is mounting on the pressure. I know, Vanessa, you've been with your community foundation really at the tip of the spear here through this crisis, but through so many others. We've been through fires together. We went through borderline together, and you've been backbone, frankly, for the Ventura County region. But we don't always ask you about your structure and sort of how you keep the community foundation strong and ticking. Can you just share a little bit of that sort of behind the curtain of what makes VCCF so successful in these crises, and really what, through your sort of hands-on view, what this process has been like for you? Like, how much time are things taking, and how successful have you been in terms of accessing funding?
Absolutely. Well, Senator Stern and Assemblymember Smith, I'm so honored to be here today with my nonprofit colleagues. I'm a huge fan of Jan and Lucy, so it's really wonderful to be here. And, I think Senator Stern, you said it best. We have gone through so much in our region, in Ventura County, multiple fires, 5 fires in the last 2 years. We had the tragedy at Borderline. There was this disruption with the Montecito mudslides and the painful loss of life there. And it hit our nonprofit community 2 years in a row, right at the peak giving season. And so we just have to remember that our nonprofit community and our community has really stretched itself during that time. One of the things, though, that we did see during those disaster relief efforts was the generosity of our community and the generosity of our entire nation. And I think one of the unique things about this experience is that we're all weathering this all at the same time. This is a global crisis. Every community in the world is facing this. And so whereas before we had donors and foundations from all over the world helping to our community respond, right now it really is at the local level. Right here, and we have to help serve our local community. It's a grassroots effort. It's a direct donor to donor, company to company outreach effort. And what I am struck by once again is how generous Ventura County really is. From the beginning of, March 13th, when we launched the Ventura County Rapid Response Fund with our partners from Amgen Foundation and the County of Ventura and the Southeast Ventura County YMCA and the Economic Development Collaborative and our partners Give an Hour with mental health, our whole focus was really raising funds for our nonprofits with basic needs, individuals and families. And I'm very pleased to say that a second round of funding to individuals and families have been distributed. All the families are reporting having received those funds from round 2.
Wow.
And then also
you already got all that out the door.
Oh, yes. And then all of our small business support. And what's amazing is about 2 weeks ago, we had awarded over $500,000 and the last penny from the fund had been awarded. And then last Wednesday, we were able to announce another $391,000. That was all the money that had come in. Wow. We had depleted the funding again. And now all of a sudden over the weekend, since that announcement went out, we have raised almost $60,000 again for efforts. So I will say it is a really get the money in, get the money out type of an initiative, and we're not taking any administrative fees for those works. Additionally, we want to help serve our undocumented workers, our farm workers, our service workers, and have been working with wonderful partners with the McCune Foundation, Future Leaders of America, and MyCop and Cause. And we have over 6,000 families that have applied for funding. And so we're going to need to raise about $6.5 million for those families. And we're shy of $1 million right now. We're about $860,000. So we still have a ways to go, but those dollars are also getting out the door. So our goal is to really bring in as much as we possibly can. And finally, our donors are mobilized. It's not just basic needs. And I think Jan hit the nail on the head. We need to protect our arts organizations, our environmental organizations, our gardens, our museums, and our donors have awarded over $2 million just on their own through their funds at the Community Foundation. And I'll tell you, I have huge amount of respect and awe for all of these people that have really banded together year after year and continue to dig deep to help our community, because it's that stability that they're able to provide in terms of unrestricted support to nonprofits that we can help ensure that organizations can fulfill their mission. But of course, we can't serve all needs all at one time. And I will say we have had over 25 million in requests from our local nonprofits, and that's just in Ventura County. So
give us that math one more time, Vanessa. So $25 million in need so far, directly expressed to the organization. It could be much larger than that, but this is through direct request. And how much supply have we brought to that kind of demand so far?
Well, relative to the need, it's still a drop in the bucket, but it's important. It's important support. So,
but the point is, you're not done. I mean, the demand is far outstripping. And in terms of the pace of delivery, it sounds like when those dollars come in, they're moving out the door incredibly quickly without overhead. So even though the need is still sort of overwhelming, when the dollars come in, they don't bottleneck. It doesn't sound.
Absolutely. No, we get the dollars in and get them out right away. And we keep exhausting all the funds and then raising new dollars. And so it's a real-time basis. And we try to make this process as easy as possible. And I'm just going to give my cell number, my office number that goes right to my cell phone. You can call me directly. And if you have not yet applied and you have needs, please reach out, 805-330-6676. And that's my direct line. Please reach out anytime and we can talk if you have not yet had an opportunity to let us know of your needs too.
Well, that's customer service if I ever heard it, Vanessa, and consistent with your diligence throughout all of these crises. So from the bottom of our hearts, thank you.
Sorry, just one thing. If you're interested, we publish to the penny every dollar that goes out the door.
Please.
If you're interested in getting on that, just let me know. And we'll go ahead and make sure you get that report as well.
We appreciate it. And, that kind of transparency and the auditing process that you guys go through voluntarily, I think only hardens the trust really that's been built between you and the folks in our county. So we're hugely grateful. And, from where we sit, unfortunately, for better or for worse, we need you right now. And, we sometimes wish our government were in a more prepared position going into this. But right now, the system really is response driven. And this crisis driven approach really demands the kind of generosity that's luckily being met. So, I'm just glad it's you guys on. Yeah, we have to be together here. And I know that others out there amongst our Facebook and Zoom callers and some of the folks who have emailed in had a bunch of questions beyond in a little more detail. And I was just wondering, Christy, do you mind? Can we just jump in a little Q&A and then you can? I'll ask. I got one from Dina here from Cal Lu, and then one from Russ from our friends at Simi Valley Police Explorers. Can I do those and then hand it over to you?
Yep, you got it.
Okay, cool. All right. So just right off the top, we're thinking this one might be for Jan, but Dina with Cal Lutheran is asking, where should we turn for nonprofit relief efforts? Are there sort of collaborative fundraising opportunities available? Any thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, hi, Dina. And I wanted to just tag one thing onto what Vanessa said. The foundations like Ventura and Sonoma and Napa that have had recent wildfire crises have been the first to respond and the fastest to respond. And it really strikes me that there's been a lot of learning for those foundations in those areas and the public sector too. And so hopefully, everybody is learning from the people that have had some recent experience. So in response to the question about collaborative fundraising, I think just again, reflecting what Vanessa said, foundations and private donors don't have right now as fast enough the same amount of money that government does. So I think government fundraising is sometimes called advocacy, but there is a degree to which one law or one bill is worth 1,000 grant proposals. And so I think we are seeing some collaborative advocacy at the county level, particularly from human services organizations, that is bringing millions and millions and millions of dollars into nonprofit organizations. Two things about raising money in the private sector I think are important. One is that there have been, as you guys all know, dozens and dozens of COVID funds have been set up by foundations, by neighborhoods, by block clubs, by companies. And some nonprofits now are also starting to set up COVID-19 funds so that it's a fund that will be distributed among a certain number of nonprofits working on a particular issue. And I think that that's a really good way to do it. And one other thing, is people, particularly organizations that get a significant amount of money, for example, from opening night at their theater or from their annual gala or their walk run or those kinds of things, that turning to virtual events in groups is having more effect than doing them as one. Because if you used to have 2,000 people at your walk run event, realistically, virtually, you're going to maybe have 100. So grouping people together in a walk run, for example, that kind of thing is going to be more effective. So those three things, I think: government advocacy for funding, starting your own COVID-19 fund with other nonprofits, and then working together on virtual events.
So following up on that, actually, Russ, who's with the Friends of Simi Valley Police Explorers, had a similar question. Since a lot of the events have been canceled, just looking for sources of working capital funding for 501c3s during the crisis. Are there any other philanthropic relief funds or efforts that regional nonprofits can access to sort of make it through the interim, in addition to that sort of creative programming? And maybe Jan, or I don't know, Vanessa, if you have some insight there as well.
Well, in addition to grant funding, I really recommend organizations that are in urgent need of cash to also connect with the Economic Development Collaborative, because they've been tremendous. Our local Economic Development Collaborative, they have just been answering the call. I mean, they are fielding every call live. They've been helping to get resources out. We've been helping to help support their efforts as well. But I highly recommend the Economic Development Collaborative as well, and couldn't agree more with Jan. We saw a lot of success actually after the Thomas fire with joint trail funds and other collaborative fundraising efforts, and your local community foundation, if you're in Ventura County or Los Angeles, with the California Community Foundation or Santa Barbara, they can help you as well.
Thanks for that, Vanessa. Christy, I'm going to let you jump in here now on wrangling some of the Q&A together.
You got it. Thank you, Senator Stern. All right, so our next question comes from Shanina from Conflict Resolution Institute, and she's wondering how will not-for-profit hospitals survive, and what resources are available to them?
Well, I'll jump in on that one. This is Lucy. Well, the challenges that nonprofit hospitals and health clinics are facing now actually point to a trend in the past couple of decades of reducing the number of hospitals statewide. And unfortunately, this trend leaves many people without easy access to high levels of healthcare in their communities. And they have to travel long distances to go to the hospital. So this pandemic shows that we need to address this issue. We need to bring hospitals back into communities that don't have them now. So, but in terms of surviving and accessing funding, we do know that the federal interim budget bill signed into law last week does include some additional funding for hospitals and also for COVID-19 testing. And then in addition, I know that at the state level, there's a movement as the shelter-in-place restrictions shift towards bringing back elective surgeries and other procedures that will generate income for hospitals. So those are just some of the things we're noticing, and then some suggestions.
Right. And thank you for that, Lucy. I completely agree. Those of us in the state legislature side have really been advocating with our federal counterparts for more investment, particularly in healthcare infrastructure, not only during this time, but as we come out of this crisis. We are starting to now realize where we had these very vulnerable communities with care deserts and an inability to access healthcare, even in some cases through telehealth. And so we now know structurally, even more clearly, unfortunately, where those gaps are. We need to continue to all work together on that advocacy piece to shore up our system. But we do also want to remind folks who are in that space, engage my office, engage Senator Stern's office, and we will connect you with every amount of available state and federal resource that we can help connect you with. So thank you for that answer, Lucy. And then our next question is from Nicole of Strength United. And this question has been a popular topic among our nonprofit circles. And the question is, are there any additional resources available for organizations that assist survivors of domestic violence, considering current circumstances?
I'll take a crack at that one. I think it's become very clear, thanks to nonprofit advocates in the domestic violence field, that this is an area that's particularly necessary right now, with everybody under so much more stress than they've been in such a long time. And there are some particular pools of funds that have been set aside for domestic violence organizations. But I would really encourage anybody who works in domestic violence to become a member of the California Alliance for Domestic Violence Organizations. Just like if you're a museum, you should be a member of the California Association of Museums. If you're a food bank, you should be a member of the California Association of Food Banks, or you should join California Association of Nonprofits, because that's who will tell who has always the most up-to-date information about what new funding is available for a particular area, and also what bills are coming up for which we need to show our support in a very strong way.
Thank you for that, Jan. Yeah, and it's, it's been so pressing for us. We know that, on state side, I've seen Senator Stern and myself do this a number of times, just making sure that people have those awareness of the appropriate hotlines to call. But now more than ever, support for those organizations is critical, particularly if they're in a situation where they might have to rehouse an individual who needs to leave a domestic violence home. So we thank you for that answer. And again, nonprofits involved in this space, if we can help, please reach out. So moving on to our next question, we have this one from our friends at Strength United. This one is from Mullen, and they ask, where can nonprofits in need of PPE turn, specifically those that provide emergency services? Are any state resources available?
Well, I'll take this one. Thank you for that question. We recently did a survey of nonprofits in California, and we got a lot of responses very quickly. And we found that 62% of the nonprofits that responded are really struggling with having access to PPE. So this is really a challenge and an ongoing challenge. In terms of resources and accessing PPE, the best thing to do is to go actually to your county department, either your Department of Emergency Response or to your public health department, and explain your needs for PPE and access the PPE that way. The state does have PPE resources, but they will be distributing them to county governments so that you can then access them that way.
Right. And Assemblymember Smith, I just wanted to let those in Ventura County know that the Ventura County Community Foundation, in conjunction with the County of Ventura, our Office of Emergency Services, Assemblymember Irwin, we have also launched a PPE drive and have been supporting the county, but we also have put out requests for other organizations specifically, and received 2,000 masks for organizations serving farm workers, and we've received a lot of Clorox for childcare workers. So if you have a need in Ventura County, just feel free to share that. We have a mailing list with over 9,000, and people have been really responsive.
Well, thank you both for that answer. And yeah, in extending into the LA County area that Senator Stern and I both also represent, call either one of our offices. We're happy to put you in touch with either the county officials processing county infrastructure for distribution of PPE. But he and I are both involved in an effort where we've partnered with the Los Angeles County Business Federation to streamline both donations and then outflow of PPE to frontline essential communities, that including our nonprofits providing these emergency services. And so we're happy to connect you and help you get whatever those needs might be through our partnership with LA BizFed. So please do reach out if we can be helpful there. All right, so we're going to move on to some of our live questions that have come across since we started streaming this to our Facebook audience. And I'll open this up to any of the three of you. Will the $10,000 grant for the EIDL, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, become available again for those who haven't already applied? And if so, when? That question is from Christine.
I'd be happy to take a crack at that one. There is an additional $60 billion in the new interim federal bill that was just signed on Friday for the EIDL program, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. And that includes $10 billion for the advance program that the caller's referring to. So it will be available again. So please ask for it when you apply, and you can get up to $10,000 depending on your number of employees in your organization.
Fantastic. That's good news. So our next question is one that probably impacts quite a few of the nonprofits that we work with. And are there recommendations for those nonprofits who work under a fiscal sponsor situation, like Growing Hope Gardens? And this is a question from Carolyn.
The short answer is no. I've talked to a number of the large fiscal sponsors and small fiscal sponsors over the last few weeks, and because the clients or the projects of a fiscal sponsor are not separately incorporated, they're not eligible for the same kinds of issues. So from a legal perspective, they're viewed as kind of a department of an organization as opposed to an organization on their own. I know that this is an issue for a lot of organizations. It is possible, depending on your fiscal sponsor. For example, they may be in the zone of more than 500 employees, so they could apply for funds at that basis and then internally make those loans available to their projects. But there isn't anything on a standalone basis for someone who's sponsored by a fiscal sponsor.
Okay. So your guidance to them would be to just reach out to whoever that fiscal sponsor is and try to help coordinate efforts with them?
Yeah.
Yes, and I know a lot of fiscal sponsors in California are talking to one another and hearing about what different things that they're doing. There is a pretty good network of fiscal sponsors, and but but I have to just say it's been very difficult, and I think it's making some people, just like in so many other areas, this has never happened before, and so it's making people rethink fiscal sponsorship in a number of different ways.
Sure. Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. Well, so here's the next question for our panelists. David is asking us, how can local professionals give back to nonprofits that are currently in need? Is there an online resource? What are the best online resources for people who want to partner and contribute?
Assemblymember Smith, I also want to just add that right now I'm really more coming back to the question on fiscal sponsorship. This is more important now than ever to make sure that your fiscal sponsor is financially healthy. Yes. One of the things that I think a lot of organizations that are working in that type of relationship is that they don't see their assets as commingled with their fiscal sponsor, but really it is that way. And so you really want to ensure that your fiscal sponsor also has adequate cash flow and is in a good shape themselves. And so I just couldn't let that go without just talking through that, because I think that would be a really heartbreaking situation for a lot of organizations that are doing great work. In regards to the other question about where donors can go, of course, there are great resources, but one of the most comprehensive that I've seen is the Southern California Grantmakers, and they have published a list of all organizations working on COVID-19 relief efforts throughout the whole state. It's great, and I'll make sure to send that link so that you have that. But it's a wonderful report, and you can look for so many different wonderful causes through that website. And that's right on their website of Southern California Grantmakers.
Southern California Grantmakers, fantastic. Thank you, Vanessa. So this question...
volunteer side part of that question. So I think that, first of all, in some ways, nonprofits, many nonprofits don't have as many volunteer opportunities as they used to because, for example, they don't need volunteer ushers at the film festival. And there are still, of course, a great many volunteer opportunities for people that are healthy and understand that there are risks to going to the food banks and the Meals on Wheels programs. But those programs are taking extraordinary measures to protect their own staff and volunteers. So I want to encourage you for that. Now, if you go to the big kind of the monster.com of volunteers is volunteermatch.org, and they have a special section right now for COVID-related volunteering. And they have both in-person, where you put in your location and how far you're willing to travel, and also a lot of virtual opportunities. So, things like reading to people, transcribing historical documents and things like that. So volunteermatch.org, and then go to their special COVID section.
Great, thank you, Jan. So our next question is about funding for homeless initiatives. And I will say that the state, through an early executive order and spending plan put together by Governor Newsom and our state's team, has allocated quite a bit of resource, particularly during this COVID crisis, to addressing some of the challenges within our homeless populations, everything from sanitation to shelter to opportunities to isolate if necessary, if a homeless individual or an unhoused individual is diagnosed with the virus. So some of that is being pushed out through our county departments, but some of that has also gone through our nonprofit community. But to our panelists here today, can you speak to any other particular resources available around homeless initiatives?
Happy to answer. In Ventura County, we have quite a number of wonderful efforts going on housing homeless in hotels. And that has been a project with the County Human Services, also United Way, and the Gold Coast Veterans. It's been quite a collective effort, and happy to send more information on that.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. And there are parallel programs in Los Angeles County again, and I would encourage anyone who knows of a need or wants to help out in that respect and has an availability of resources, please connect with my office, with Senator Stern's office, and we will put you in contact with the right people. And we have another question that's being transcribed for us right now, coming to us off of Facebook. Hold on. This one, Christine? Mm-hmm. Okay, so the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Conejo Valley is an essential service and are operating at all of their Conejo Valley campuses, following state, federal, and county guidelines. We are unable to get into our clubs in LVUSD. There is significant impact on kids being out of school and working virtually, with research saying it's significantly detrimental. We are trying to figure out how to be able to provide summer learning opportunities. What do you suggest? Okay, well, I can actually answer this one, Christine, because right before we got hopped on this teleconference today, I was in a meeting with the governor and his team and the Legislative Women's Caucus in California, where we are trying to reprioritize the state's childcare resources on a very large scale. We know, particularly for our essential workforce, that childcare is paramount for them now, particularly with children not in school. So trying to figure out how do we best capitalize on the childcare resources that are already there, and then expanding through existing resources like our relationships with our Boys and Girls Clubs and our YMCA to make sure that they can stay operational and still continue to provide that excellent level of research. Summer programming is certainly on that agenda of things that we know we need to start to address to be prepared for that, as not only the summer months roll around, but also we start to make progress towards a slow reopening of the economy. So that is very front of mind for the legislature at this point. We want to ensure that childcare opportunities are extended and available, and that families who need to go to work have those childcare resources. So I thank you for the question. I'll open it up to our panel, though, if any of you know of resources that are being extended to our childcare providers.
I think that in particular for family daycare providers, that the Child Care Resource and Referral Network is a really good resource for them, not just to the nonprofit child care centers, but also to people that have family daycare.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. Okay, well, it looks like we may have gone through all of our live questions, so I appreciate those participants who joined in and asked questions. To our panelists, I'd love to give you each an opportunity to make a closing remark. What would you like people to take away from our conversation today?
Well, I would say, don't miss now that you know Senator Stern and Assemblymember Smith, don't stop talking to them. Call them up when you need something. Thank them when they do something good, and keep in touch with them, because I think that the more elected officials hear from nonprofits, the more that they understand what our needs are and the more they can respond to them. And to nonprofits, I would just say, right now it feels like we just have to hang in there, and actually we have to start already putting our views towards the future. And one of our board members runs a museum, and she was commenting that she used to always think 3 years ahead. And now she thinks two things. She thinks 3 days ahead, and she thinks 30 years ahead. And I think that's a good frame for all of us.
I agree. Anything else, ladies?
I would encourage all of us to continue our advocacy at the state level, but also to be advocating at local levels, at the county level, to make sure if you have contracts that you're unclear about and you need flexibility to be able to perform on your contract, that you're reaching out to your local leaders as well as state leaders.
Absolutely. And, there's a very robust effort behind that with my legislative colleagues around those asks that the nonprofit community has put together. And, it's simple things. It's flexibility. It's allowing nonprofits to meet the needs in this moment, given the constraints that we're all operating under in a public health crisis. So we appreciate all of your diligence, your advocacy. To the nonprofits who joined us today, thank you for the work that you do. Thank you for your persistence. We know that it's not easy, especially right now. We know that you are such an essential part of our front lines, keeping our communities fed and housed and safe, and we appreciate you for that. You know, one of the positive takeaways from today that I would say, and I also agree with, because I've actually been on a few of these in the last month, the online fundraising does work. I mean, it's not going to be the same as getting everybody in a ballroom or having an art show or a run or a walk. But, you know, for the hosts, you don't have to put out the wine and cheese spread. You just need to create a Zoom link and you need to get people involved. And in LA and Ventura County, just the opportunity to miss the traffic and still, you know, get on a call for a little while and, you know, connect with people who care about the same causes and issues that you do can be a really rewarding and fulfilling experience. And even if you don't have a whole lot to contribute right now, and I know the economy is tough on a lot of people, participating and giving what you can, even if it's a little bit, helps do the amazing work that all of these nonprofits represent. And so we appreciate that. And it's a wonderful opportunity to connect with people. And Jan, if you could speak to Cal Nonprofits' role and how people can join the association if they chose.
Sure, thanks very much. So, you know, we're kind of a chamber of commerce for nonprofit organizations, a statewide chamber. And so part of what we do then is we kind of advocate for a positive economic and regulatory climate that nonprofits can thrive in. And so I think we're a great place to stay up to date with the latest stuff, as well as a lot of other kind of benefits. We also run a health insurance program. So about 23,000 nonprofit staff get their insurance through us. So I hope you'll consider joining us because membership dues are actually a third of our budget. And it's the way we're able to kind of keep the pressure up and make sure that nonprofits get included in the recovery packages and are at the table, making sure that nonprofit voices get heard. Thank you.
All right, fantastic.
I just wanted to jump back to what you had also said, Assemblymember Smith, in regards to nonprofits that may be a little shyer to reach out if they're not doing basic needs, if they're not responding to COVID-19 efforts, but they need to continue to run, right? And we want them to be nice and strong. We've been doing a lot of work running some statistical analysis on nonprofits and their database and really encourage organizations right now when they may have time at home to go back and run that year after year giving report, because you can actually start to see like, oh my goodness, that donor has contributed every year for 20 years. And this is a perfect time to be able to call them and just say, you've been with us every year for 20 years and we, you know, need you now more than ever. And as a donor, that's the kind of call that would open up my heart and wallet. And I just really encourage organizations, if you're struggling with that and, you know, need a champion, to reach out. You have great resources. The Center for Nonprofit Leadership also is doing great curriculum on that same topic. And so I just wanted to give a shout out to both Cal Nonprofits and also the Center for Nonprofit Leadership for that as well.
Yeah, excellent point. Thank you for that, Vanessa. Yeah, it's so many aspects of our communities that we don't think about that are actually supported by the nonprofit sector, our museums and our historical societies, and, you know, maybe even parks we enjoy and places we like to recreate and programs for our kids and things that happen on a day-to-day basis that maybe we just have taken for granted are supported by really great nonprofits doing really great work. And we want to keep all of them surviving through this along with everybody else. So it's really great insight and wonderful information. To our panelists tonight, I thank each of you for joining. You've shared some really great information and insight. And to our nonprofits, please don't hesitate to be in touch. If any of us can be supportive, I'm happy to connect you to any one of these incredibly talented women to share their resources, but my office and Henry Stern's office can do a lot to help as well. The number at my office is 661-286-1565. And thank you all for joining us this evening, and stay healthy, stay well, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
All right, we're off live. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Enjoy your evening.
You too.